So let's continue. We said for we have 5 steps to update the database, and the client can read the message. So in order to storage in Exchange Server 2013 Mailbox server, we have disk storage option. We can use SATA, SAS, and SSD and SAN. So for SATA, which is Serial Advanced Technology Attachment, SSD is for solid state drive, SASI for Serial Attached Small Computer System Interface, known as SAS, or Serial Attached SCSI, or ISCSI. So all of this name means the same type of drives. For the RAID option, we have GBOD, which is just a bunch of disks, which is a collection of disks that have no redundancy or fault tolerance. GBOD solutions are usually lower cost than solutions that use RAID. Just a bunch of disks adds fault tolerance by using multiple copies of the database on separate disk. We have also RAID 0, RAID 1 for stripping, RAID 1 for mirroring, RAID 5 stripping with party, RAID 01 mirrored stripped set, and RAID 6 stripping with double parity, and RAID 1+0 or RAID 10 mirrored set in stripped sets. So how to import and export data from Mailbox database. So Exchange Server 2013 allow you to export users in Mailbox data to a PST file, or import data to users in Mailbox from a PST file. Use the following commandlet to import or export data. So we use new Mailbox import request, or a new Mailbox export request. So Mailbox import export role must be assigned to the user that perform the operation. PST file can be located on shares. So we have seen a demonstration about importing data to users Mailbox. I've already seen this demonstration last week. Now we begin the lesson 2, planning the Mailbox server deployment. So planning the Mailbox server role deployment is a key part of the Exchange server infrastructure planning. Before you deploy an Exchange 2013 Mailbox server, you should plan for hardware and storage to accommodate the needs of your environment. You also should plan and design the Mailbox database layout, as well as high availability option. Some special consideration apply if you decide to virtualize your Mailbox server. So in this lesson, we will discuss Mailbox server deployment, So plan hardware and storage for the Mailbox server, design Mailbox database, plan high availability for the Mailbox server, and describe consideration for virtualization Mailbox server. Describe the Exchange Mailbox server role requirement calculator, and use the Exchange Mailbox server role requirement calculator, and verify Mailbox server to role performance. So in order to plan a hardware for the Mailbox server role, when planning hardware for Exchange Server 2013, consider the following. We have the CPU must be 64-bit, multi-core reconnected, and one core per 1000 active mailbox. Then for the memory, minimum 4 gigabit per mailbox server, and 3 megabit per mailbox per 50 message. So you must calculate or consider this value in order to calculate your need in terms of hardware. So you can plan your hardware for Exchange server based on these information. A typical server processor, for example, has 4 or more core. As one core can serve 1000 active mailbox. So it depends on your need. So in order to planning storage the mailbox server role, so consider the following when planning the Exchange Server 2013 storage. Replicate the database copy, increase the amount of storage required. Slower disk have a lower cost per gigabit than faster disk. For example, lower disk for input output, you can consider using large 7200 rotation per minute disk rather than smaller, faster, for example, 15,000 rotation per minute disk. A typical 7200 rotation per minute disk stores between 1 and 3 terabyte. A typical 15,000 rotation per minute disk stored less than 1 terabyte. So the 7200 rotation per minute disk are significantly less expensive per gigabit. So direct attached storage, or DAS, is significantly less expensive than storage area network, or SAN. So the direct attached storage is less expensive than a storage area network. Also, the GBOD can be considered when there are 3 or more replicates of a database. There are typical fewer database copy when storage area network is used, and use RAID to increase redundancy. Use the Exchange Server Mailbox Server Role Requirement Calculator. So database design for Mailbox database. When designing database, you should consider use split log file and database storage to enhance recoverability when replication is not used. So we will base on log files. Allocate space for indexes and allocate space for single item recovery, and allocate space for personal archives. Allocate space for recovery database. You can implement high availability for Mailbox servers by using DAGs. Consider the following when planning DAGs. So the Mailbox database name must be unique in the Exchange 2013 organization. This may require deploying a naming convention. This naming convention should not include the server name because the database can move between DAG members. So DAG require the failover clustering feature in Windows Server. DAGs also can be managed completely with Exchange Server 2013 tools, and DAGs can also protect public folders. So both Exchange Server 2013 server roles can be virtualized. When implementing Exchange Server 2013 on a virtual machine, consider the following. Exchange Server 2010 has the same hardware requirement in a virtualized environment. Do not use dynamic memory. Limit virtual processor allocation to a ratio of 2 by 1. Do not dynamically expand virtual disk. Do not use differentiating or snapshots. The virtual disk performance must be considered, and use pass-through Iscsi storage if desired. You can combine virtual machine high availability method with Exchange Server 2013 high availability methods. So the Exchange Mailbox server role requirement calculator is a free tools from Microsoft that helps you design your Mailbox server deployment. User input are made in the following category: user profile, high availability architecture, server CPU platform, storage architecture, backup architecture, and network architecture. It provides very detailed information about requirement for Mailbox server. So here we have a demonstration using the Exchange Mailbox server role requirement calculator. So we will see a video together and try to analyze the use of Exchange Mailbox server role requirement calculator. So for this demonstration, as we said before, we will use the Exchange Mailbox server role requirement. So here you have Exchange server version, server role virtualization, site resilient deployment, use metacache database, yes or no. So in the Exchange 2010 Mailbox server role requirement calculator, so you have on the input sheet, enter the following value for each section: the Exchange environment configuration, mailbox database copy configuration. You have the total number of HI database copy instance, including active copy. Here you have Exchange server count. For example, the number. You can also use the mailbox database copy configuration. The total number of HI database copy instance include active copy with direct access. For example, you choose 3, total number of large database copy instance, and so on. For example, for site resilience configuration, you can configure the activation mailbox. You can change any value. It is an Excel file, like an Excel file with the extension XLSM. For example, percentage used for mailbox move per week. For example, volume free space percentage. For example, we need 10% of free space volume. For tier 1 user mailbox configuration, the total number of tier 1 user mailbox environment, for example, 500. Total send and receive capacity mailbox, for example, 50. Average message size. You can choose values in order to configure your mailbox, the mailbox. This is for the input. Or these are input. For example, for tier 2 user mailbox configuration. Also, you can use backup configuration, the backup methodology. can use software versus backup restore. Now the server 1, server 2. And now for the role performance role requirement. So in the role requirement tab, then for the distribution and volume requirement, you have here the replication requirement. So this is for how to use the Exchange Mailbox server role requirement calculator. So you have it depends on your usage and the size of mailbox. So you can choose different value depending on your need. Then you can click the distribution sheet and export the script button. So this is for this demonstration. Then verifying mailbox server role performance to evaluate server configuration and performance. Gather usage information. So to design a test plan for mailbox server performance, you need to accurately understand how the server will be used. These include factors such as the number of mailbox, the number of message user will send, and the type of client that will be accessing the mailbox. If you do not accurately understand the load that will be placed on the server, you cannot ensure that server performance will meet your needs. So you must have the right value and accurate value to obtain a good result or a good configuration. When you create your test environment, you should ensure that it replicates the condition in your production environment as closely as possible. This means that you should be using identical hardware, software, and driver on the test system and production system. So to test server performance, it is impossible to completely replicate the user in the production environment. However, Microsoft provides two tools that you can use to generate simulated load on the server. You have the Exchange load generator, and you have also jet stress For the Exchange load generator, you can use this tool to create a simulated load of MIPI Outlook web application, the Microsoft Exchange Active Synchronization Technology, and Internet Messenger Access Protocol, IMAP, POP3, and SMTP, Simple Mail Transfer Protocol, in your Exchange servers. So you can configure this tool based on the usage data that you have gathered to determine whether the performance is acceptable. You can also use jet stress so to verify disk performance by simulating the Exchange server database and the log file load that a specific number of users produce. This tool is also capable of simulating the load generated by database replication in that. So here you have jet stress and load. These tools used to simulate the load and to verify disk performance. Now we'll continue with lesson 3 and the last lesson for this chapter, configuring the Mailbox server. So one of the most important tasks that you will perform after you initiate Exchange Server 2013 deployment is configuring the Mailbox server. You should secure the Mailbox server as much as possible, plan and configure the appropriate storage, and then create and configure the Mailbox database. In this lesson, we will discuss configuration of the Mailbox server. So after I accomplish this lesson, you will be able to describe initial configuration task for the Mailbox server, configure Iscsi storage, describe recommendation for implementing the Mailbox database, and create and manage the Mailbox database. So before you put your Exchange server 2013 Mailbox server into production, perform the following task. So secure the server, create a configure database, configure high availability. What does mean configure high availability? So in Exchange Server 2013, use DAX to provide a high availability for Mailbox database. So it is recommended that the DAG be configured before deploying Mailbox on the Mailbox database. So for the configuration public folder, if you are migrating from previous Exchange server version, you should consider migration your public folder to Exchange 2013 before moving all of your Mailbox. Then for configuring recipient, including resource Mailbox, and configure the offline address book and implement an antivirus solution. So it is recommended highly that you implement and configure an antivirus and anti-malware solution before you put your Exchange server into production, and to be sure that message do not damage your configuration. And now how to configure the Iscsi storage in Windows Server 2013. So Iscsi is a protocol that supports access to remote SCSI based storage device over TCP/IP network. Iscsi SAN deployment include IP network, Iscsi target, Iscsi initiator, and Iscsi qualified name or IQN. So IP network, you can use standard network interface adapter and standard Ethernet protocol network switches to connect to the server to the storage device. To provide sufficient performance, the network should provide speed of at least 1 gigabit per second. So it is recommended to use network with 1 gigabit per second and should provide multiple paths to the ASI target. We recommend that you use a dedicated physical and logical network to achieve fast, reliable throughput. ASI target present or advertised storage similar to controller for hard disk drive of locally attached storage. However, this storage is accessed over the network instead of locally. Many storage vendors implement hardware level Iscsi target as part of their storage device hardware. For the Iscsi initiator, so the Iscsi target displays storage to the Iscsi initiator, also known as the client, which acts as a local disk controller for the remote disks. We have the Iscsi qualified name or IQN, so which are unique identifier that are used to address initiator and target on Iscsi network. When you configure Iscsi target, you must configure the IQN for the Iscsi initiator that will be connecting to the target. Iscsi initiator also use IQN to connect to the Iscsi target. However, if name resolution on Iscsi network is a possible issue, Iscsi endpoint, both target and indicator, can always be identified by their IP addresses. So I say target server in Windows Server 2000 includes network and diskless boot, server application storage, heterogeneous storage, and lab environment. What we call heterogeneous storage. An ASI target server support Iscsi initiator that are not based on Windows. So you can share storage on Windows Server in mixed environment. Windows and non-Windows are supported. For the lab environment, Iscsi target server role enable you Windows Server 2000 computer to be a network accessible block storage device. This is useful in situation where you want to test application before deploying on SIN storage. So we have a demonstration here, configuring ISSI storage for the Mailbox server role. So we will see how to do this. So demonstration configuring ISSI storage for the Mailbox server role. So in this demonstration, we will show how to configure SSI storage for Mailbox server. So on London domain controller 1, start server manager, start add role and future user, install the following role and future to the local server and accept the default value. So we will use file and storage services, installed file and ISI service installed, and ICSI target server. So we'll use server, then domain controller, and we'll have the file and ICSI service installed. We will choose file server installed, ISSI target server, then next. So here you have a resume about what will be installed: file ISSI target server. So after installation completed, close. So from file and storage services, you choose ISSI. In the task model, in new ISSI disk wizard, here you choose your volume, you choose a name, for example ISSI disk 1, the size you will reserve for this disk, for example 2 giga, and a new ISSI target, choose a name, for example on Mailbox 1. Then you add initiator ID. For example, here you have London Mailbox at the top. Then next you have resume and you confirm your choice. So it will create SSI virtual disk, SSI target, and set target and assign ISSI. In ISSI virtual disk, you choose a new ISSI virtual disk wizard. The same thing, you choose name, size, for example 5 or 500 megabit, for example. So you have existing ICSI target already. Then you create so this is the creation of the target mailbox 1. Now in the dashboard, from tools you choose ISSI image. You can choose the anglet discovery. Then you give the IP address or DNS name. So when you click refresh, you have the name of the target. So the ISSI initiator target name. It is already connected. And it is okay. So this is for demonstration about configuring ISSI storage for the mailbox server. So you must create a new ISSI virtual disk. You can choose the location, the name, the size, and the target and target name and the access server. So recommendation for implementing mailbox database: follow these guidelines when implementing mailbox servers. Give each set of transaction logs its own hard disk. Use RAID 5 or RAID 6 to enhance performance and fault tolerance. As we said before, for example, for RAID 4, it is for stripping with parity, and for RAID 6, stripping with double parity. Use RAID 1 to provide fault tolerance for transaction log. RAID 1 is for mirroring. It is always used for mirroring, so you can use it to provide fault tolerance for transaction log. For large enterprise environment, use SAN, which is storage area network. So you can use storage area network as a storage solution. And consider using ISSI storage in small to medium sized company. Use the prohibited SAN storage limit to manage storage growth. So it depends on your usage and size of your solution, the proposed solution. So you can create and manage mailbox database by using the EAC or EMS. So EAC, which is Exchange Administration Center. So you can create a mailbox database from both the Exchange Administration Center, EAC, or from the Exchange Management Shell, EMS, Exchange Management Shell. However, advanced management of existing database can be done only from the Exchange Management Shell. So if you want advanced management, it is recommended that you use EAC or Exchange Administration Center. So the EIC is used for basic management. The EMS is used for advanced mailbox database management. When you create mailbox database from EAC, you need to specify the mailbox database name, the server that will host the database, and path for the database file and logs. By default, each database location is within the Exchange server installation directory, but we recommend you change this because you should host the database on the dedicated volume. If you want to create mailbox database by using Exchange Management Shell, you should use the new mailbox database commandlet. So the commandlet used, for example, here you have some commandlet. You have new mailbox database, get mailbox database, set mailbox database, and move database path. So we have a demonstration also here to create and manage mailbox database. So in order to create and manage mailbox, we open disk management, then bring online and initialize the 3 new disks, make a sample volume on each disk, and format with the NTFS. Name the volume disk 1, for example, DB2, and disk 2 as logs. And in Exchange Administration Center Windows, create a new mailbox database with the following property. Database name, DB2, database file path, we give the database, for example, path E, db2, db2.edb, and the log folder path F logs db2. Then set the property for the new database by executing the following commandlet: set mailbox database identity db2 delete item retention, circular logging enabled true, and prohibit send quota 2.2 gigabit. Then dismount and remount db2 database. So let's show how to do this. So creating and managing mailbox database. It's from the computer management. We choose, for example, disk 1, initialize disk, then a new sample volume wizard. We choose 2 giga, volume name E. We choose file system as NTFS, and volume label db1. And we have disk 2. We initialize disk and we choose the volume, the assigned letter, and volume label db2. And for example, for disk 3 also, we choose the size, assigned letter, and the volume label logs. We can format the disk using NTFS. Then we choose services. So here we have databases. We add Mailbox database. For example, Mailbox 1 in London Exchange 1. We give the database path, log file path, and here you must restart. We choose the Microsoft Exchange information and restart this service. You can edit the Mailbox database, MB1. You have here, for example, for general, you have information, maintenance, we have maintenance schedule. You can choose it is not recommended to choose enable circular logging. You have limits, for example, issue warning, for example, if it is about 0.9 gigabit, prohibit send at 1 gigabit, prohibit send and receive 0.13, and keep delete item for example, 30 days. And keep deleted mailbox 30 days also. We can also check for client settings. So here we will use the in the machine we will use the command let. So set or get mailbox database. Then we use the move data path from mailbox 1 from send database file path edb1 to log file. Then you have confirmation message if you want to perform this action for moving database. You can choose yes. Moving file of the database. As you see here, it is moved to E, and for the log file, you have database 1 and the log file. The same thing for mailbox 2. So we specify database file path and log file path. So you can use set mailbox database identity mailbox 2 delete item retention 20.00. You have confirmation also, you confirm and then mount your database. So this is to set the property for the new database by executing the command let. So this is for so with this demonstration how to create and manage mailbox database, we finish this chapter. We maybe begin the chapter 3 in the module 3. So module 3 consists of dealing with managing and recipient object. So in any messaging system, you need to create recipient and configure them to send and receive email. As a Microsoft Exchange Server Messaging Administrator, you often must create, modify, or delete recipient object. Therefore, it is essential that you have a good understanding of recipient management. This module describes how you can manage recipient object, address policy, and address list in Microsoft Exchange Server 2013. By managing Exchange Server 2013 Mailbox, managing other Exchange Server 2013 recipient, also implement public folder and configure address list and policy. We have 4 lessons: managing Exchange Server 2013 Mailbox, managing other Exchange recipient, planning and implementing public folder Mailbox, and managing address list and policies. Let's begin with the first lesson, managing Exchange Server 2013 Mailbox. We have 2 of the most common tasks that Exchange Server Administrator perform are creating and configuring email recipient. As organization, here new employee or employee change position with the organization, the Exchange Administrator need to ensure that the users have the messaging functionality that they require. Most users in the organization will use Exchange Server Mailbox, although Exchange Server 2013 also provide various other mailbox options that can be configured. So this lesson provides an overview of the different type of Exchange Server 2013 Mailbox and describe how to manage each type of mailbox. For the objective, we will see how to list the different recipient object in Exchange Server 2013, describe user mailbox, move mailbox, create and configure user mailbox, describe resource mailbox, create and configure resource mailboxes, describe site mailbox, describe share mailbox, configure shared mailbox, and describe linked mailboxes. So here, Exchange Server recipient include user mailbox, mail contact, mail user, resource mailbox, shared mailbox, mail enabled security and distribution groups, dynamic distribution groups, linked mailbox, remote mailbox, and side mailboxes. So we will continue inshallah next week. If you have any question or remark or note about what we see today, if you have any comments. محمد ليدي تفضل.
زاد فضلك يا دكتور، الله يعطيك العافيه. بالنسبه للاختبار بس او الاختبارات متى بالضبط؟
الاسبوع الجاي next week ان شاء الله.
يعني من اي chapter نبدا؟
module 1 and 2 chapter 1 و 2.
يا مهندس الاختبار حضور ولا عن بعد؟
عن بعد عن بعد.
يعطيك العافيه.
يعطيكم العافيه يا شباب، في امان الله. السلام عليكم ورحمه الله. يعطيكم العافيه، السلام عليكم، في امان الله.